Sigma kindly lent me their new 200mm f2 and I've been using it for a few weeks on my Lumix S1R Mark II. I shot a friendly football match, a few portraits and some videos with this lens. I don't get to keep it, I wish I did, but everything you hear is my honest hands-on opinion. If you want dramatic subject separation, creamy bokeh and real low light capability in a single prime, this is one of the most exciting Sigma lenses in years. It's a specialist lens and heavy. Yes, but for portraits and indoor sports, it's a serious tool. Available both in Sony E and L mounts, which is the one I have here, the L mount version. It's a 200mm prime with a bright f2 aperture that gives you faster shutter speeds in dim lighting conditions and a very shallow depth of field when you want it. The build is Sigma sports level, robust weather sealing with fluorine coating on the front element and thermal insulation paint on the barrel. The front thread of this lens is a whooping 105mm, so filter planning is something to think about. There are 3 programmable buttons on the side of the lens, a very smooth focus ring and a thoughtfully designed tripod collar. More of that in a moment. Back to the optics, there's 19 elements in 14 groups, 11 rounded blades for smooth bokeh, features optical image stabilization up to 6.5 stops, which helps most especially if you are shooting handheld, and a high-speed, high-response linear focus motor with an approximate minimum focus distance of 1.7 or 120 centimeters. So you would definitely need to be at a distance away from your subject. Compared to my old Sigma 70-200mm f2.8 EXDG version, which is now due an upgrade, this lens is not a walk-around lens. This lens is a massive 1.8 kilograms, about half a kilogram more than my 70-200 f2.8 lens, but that weight gives a reassuring professional feel. The tripod collar is a real highlight. Sigma says that this is a new design. I like it not just because it has a 1/4-20 thread hole so you can attach whatever you wish to, or because it is compatible with Arca Swiss type clamps, or because it incorporates a 90-degree click mechanism for smooth and secure rotation, but I like it because you can carry your lens along with your camera attached to it easily. And to be honest, it was just instinctive for me when I first took it out for a shoot, and it's even wide enough that if I had gloves on, which is very, very thoughtful from Sigma. And yes, as with Sigma latest lenses, this lens is silent. The lens looks compact without a hood on and utterly serious with it, which I'll admit has gotten me a few compliments. Here in my studio, I tested this L-mount body on my Lumix S1R Mark II, which was what I used this lens most of the time in AFS photo mode, and you can see it here focusing quickly between the plant and the background, and my aperture here is set to the widest aperture of f2. I later set it to AFC or continuous autofocusing, and you can see how almost instantaneously the focusing becomes. In this mode, the motor of the lens is near silent. Now for focus breathing, I turned on the autofocusing mode and manually adjusted focus between the background and the plant, and you can see how it handles it. Not so much importance for me if you're into photography, but something to consider if videography is something you would be shooting with this lens. I shot a friendly football game with the Sigma 200 f2 and my settings were f2 for separation, shutter around 1/1000 to 1600 to freeze most motion, and ISO between 1600 and 5000. AF tracking held up very well. I was able to keep focus on sprinting players most of the time and pulled a lot of usable frames. Mind you, all this was handheld, but I would definitely recommend using this with a tripod or a monopod. Capturing video wasn't much of a problem even without a tripod or monopod. This lens's 6.5 stops of optical stabilization helps, and even though I had it in OS1, the advice is to use OS2 in video mode, and although I use it handheld once again, it's better to have it on a tripod or monopod if you're shooting for longer periods. On a day out with Sarah, the lens was fun to shoot with. At f2, the background simply collapses into shades of soft color. Street clutter becomes ambience, not a distraction. I had Sarah walk, spin and do whatever she wanted to do. The lens kept her sharp while the background just dissolved beautifully. There was a point where I was filming a bird on Like a Slap. Not too long after, the bird decided to fly away and the lens kept the bird in focus as much as it could, which was amazing. You can tell by the focus shifting in the grass underneath the bird as it took its flight away. It missed the remainder as the bird flies past the minimum focus distance of the lens. Sigma's OS2 stabilization is very capable, especially when shooting video. There are two modes, mode 1 for general shooting and mode 2 optimized for panning. With this lens, whatever you have in focus will be separated away from the background and ultra sharp, which would be the reason to have a lens like this in your kit. If you don't mind moving towards or away from your subject, you get the right framing. This is a must to have. But if that's not your thing, then you might want to be better off with a 7200 f2.8. But of course, you lose the aperture of f2 with the amazing bokeh. I genuinely enjoyed using this lens. It yielded images I wouldn't have got with a standard 70-200mm f2.8 lens and opened creative options for portraits and sport. Yes, it's heavy and a specialist lens, but if you got a clear use case, it's a brilliant piece of kit. I enjoyed shooting with this lens. It was more than enough at my friend's football game, pitchside. As you can see, the image quality is amazing as it's very sharp. I love just how it rendered the colors. Its bokeh is just bokelicious. You might say I've got an 85mm or maybe a 135, something like what Sigma had just announced, but you would not get what this lens offers in terms of the amount of separation and compression for the background if that's what you're after. It's a lens that would be very solid for indoor sporting events, and maybe not just sporting events, weddings, parties. Maybe you want the level of bokeh this lens produces for your portrait headshots. This is one to have and take around with you for those special shots. But on second thought, I'm hoping Sigma is developing maybe a 70-200 from maybe f1.8 to f2 or f2.8, and I'm sure that would be an expensive one. So that's it for my review of the Sigma 200mm f2. Let me know what your thoughts are on this lens down in the comments below, and if you want to know pricing on it, you can check the link left in the description also down below. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed watching this video. It's a Filmmaker. Thanks for watching. Peace.